This Guitar Interactive magazine feature is brought to you by PRS Guitars.
Mr. Mark Tremonti, absolute pleasure to see you today. How are you?
Great. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good for seeing you. And I'm particularly great because over the years where we've had some nice sit down chats all over the world and here and over Zoom and what have you, I always try and sneak in a little Creed question and you always entertain it and I always appreciate it. But to actually speak to you under the premise of, Creed are back together, you get this 25th anniversary re release of Human Clay. I feel like I've died and gone to heaven, Mark. How has this come to be that you guys are back together?
Oh man, it's been a whirlwind since we started kicking it back together. But we started about 3 years ago talking about doing this tour before COVID hit. We
Right.
we were talking about getting back out, and then of course COVID hit and everything stopped. So once the dust settled, we came out with an Alter Bridge record and a Tremonti record, and then we knew we were going to set up this Creed tour, and everything's kind of just exploded along with it, with the Texas Rangers playing our music and the Vikings and all that, getting in the Indianapolis, getting in all these sporting events has been serendipitous and
Yeah.
has really helped, make this thing special the way, it's been nuts.
Absolutely. Now, congratulations on it. It's been
Thank
a
you.
long time coming. It's great that it all came together. One thing I've got to say, Mark, is if the career in music doesn't pan out, which I think it's probably going to be fine for the rest of your life, you've definitely got a career in acting because this time last year, well, a little earlier last year, in June, we sat down and we talked about some cool things at Download, and you guys, of course, just killed it there. I did ask you that little cheeky question on Creed, and you kept a complete straight face, and clearly you knew that announcement was just about to be made. So, props on the acting skills.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, you can't let the cat out of the bag early.
No, absolutely not. So I got to know when you guys got into the room together, all four of you. What was the first track you jammed on this third time around?
Gosh, it might have been Torn, maybe.
Okay,
Torn might have been
taking it
the
all the
first
way
track.
back. Yeah, I like it.
That's the first track on the first record too, and
Mhm.
that's a good song to get your a good song to sound check with because it's got clean guitars, dirty guitars. It's a little bit of everything in that tune. So it might have been the first song we played.
Absolutely, and of course the tour's just obviously you did the cruise ship thing, which looked like it was an
Mhm.
absolute blast. You guys are now touring throughout the United States. You've got the first few dates
Mhm.
under your belt. What for you has been some of the any surprising challenges in playing these tunes after such a long time?
Well, Creed has a lot of clean parts. Those are to me those are the biggest challenges live because
Mm.
it's you and that's it. Me and the crowd in the beginning of some of these songs where it's just a clean guitar before Scott comes in on vocals, and
Yeah.
if you miss one note, everybody's going to know it. So it's one thing blazing a million notes in a solo and having all the distortion and all this band around you. But I think it's more of a challenge just to stay focused on those clean parts when it's just you and the crowd and not miss a beat. That's Creed's got a lot of that.
Of course, and getting these tracks out. I mean, looking at the set list that you guys are playing, it's just well, it's just Creed's greatest hits, basically. So you can really see even just from the YouTube video clips and all that I've gone up. The crowd are super into it. Any of the tracks that you've been surprised over the years, I've kind of the crowd react a little bit differently to maybe they did originally, like maybe at some points in the set this would have been the highest point, pardon the pun, but actually you're
Uh-huh.
finding that some other tracks are getting an even better response than you expected.
Yeah, One Last Breath has become the big one. It's back when we toured, back off the Weather record. It was a big song for us, but
Mm.
Arms Wide Open and Higher and My Sacrifice and some other songs we definitely got a bigger response. Now I think One Last Breath is right up there with Higher as our biggest reaction of the night. So it's live. It's going over bigger than My Sacrifice, which was a surprise, which is great.
That's again, of course, you got the tough decision to decide on what you're going to start with as well. You know, you feel like "Are You Ready" is always going to be such an easy one to kick it off with, but "Bullets" seems to be the are you guys changing it up every now and then, just sort of figuring out, you know, what's the best way to kick off the show and what's the best way to end the show?
We just changed this. You know, we did 3 sets that were the same to begin the tour. Now tonight we're playing a new set list with two songs that we did on the boat, but we haven't done them on the shore yet. I guess I could let you know because nobody's going to know it before tonight, but we're playing
Sure.
Beautiful instead of Never Die tonight. And we're going to play Overcome instead of Rain tonight.
Okay,
So it's,
lovely.
you know, just to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I like it. And of course, you know, in celebrating this 25th anniversary of Human Clay, I mean, 25 years ago now, you know, you guys were just getting ready to drop this thing. And, you know, I want to talk about, you know, take you back to there where your headspace was with it, because obviously I don't think you could have imagined that what was about to happen did. But just talking about the re-release, because you've got this fantastic package here that's coming out. You got the vinyl re-release of Human Clay over you know, 2 vinyls. You got some bonus tracks on there and also some live tracks that have never been released before. Can you just talk us through how it was sort of putting this package together, and what, you know, vinyl, it's a little bit more challenging on what can go on there and what can when you're doing bonus tracks and what have you. So why was it that certain tracks made the cut?
You know, I think it was mainly up to the band and management and the record label to all kind of put together what would be the best package for the fans. And it really wasn't a ton of work. You know, it's just let's get out whatever's available that makes sense with the Human Clay record. There wasn't a lot of push and pull on it. I think everybody just kind of agreed that this is a good package. It's 25th anniversary, so it's the time and place for it, and it's the perfect time to launch it during this tour.
Absolutely. And going back 25 years, got to tell you, Mark, that was the last time you were in the UK playing with Creed, and you play. I can't believe that it was actually the Borderline that you guys played. You know, fantastic venue, but you know, pretty small, pretty small one for sure. What was some of your memories of playing that show that night?
Gosh, I remember. I just remember it being a tiny little place, you know, and just a little tiny club. At that point in the States, we were playing larger venues. So coming over to England, it was like going back to our roots again. I love it. You know, I love playing clubs. But it was so long. I can almost picture the stage perfectly in my head. I remember we didn't have on-stage monitors because there wasn't room. And I think there was like an egg crate or something that I put my foot up on instead. But yeah, I can picture it almost as clear as day in my head still.
You know, and it would have been amazing to have caught you guys then. But actually, to be fair, it'd be amazing to be able to catch you at any point. So, can you tell us right now, is there a good chance that we might see Creed performing over here in the UK?
Oh, we hope so. You know, everything. You know, we're planning through next summer right now, and everything is doing so well that we just want to keep this machine kicking. You know, we just have to be careful with we can't run over the other band's schedules, you know, because I've got a Tremonti record coming out in January.
Absolutely. So
you'll see Tremonti over there before Creed, because we're coming over in January and February. I don't know if we've announced that yet, but surprise.
Fantastic. Well, you know, I'll be there. That's for sure.
Yeah. So as far as the Creed stuff goes, we only have Creed right now scheduled through the end of the year, and then we have a cruise next year, and then one show that hasn't been announced that we're doing. So there's only 2 so far in the new year that we've scheduled.
Okay, just, you know, putting some odds on it. Okay, what would be the better chance that we would get a solo show, or that you guys might be on a festival?
Well, we plan on doing the festivals next summer with Tremonti. Okay. So that's the delicate dance between all these different bands going on. Alter Bridge, you know, the whole time I'll be writing an Alter Bridge record and going in the studio.
I get it.
In between Tremonti tours, I'll be in the studio with Alter Bridge.
Of course.
It's a big juggling act.
I get it, no, for sure. And you know, you're a one-man writing machine, so you know you're putting all these things together, of course. So let's talk about the new album. You know, it's been a minute since Marching in Time, so we're can't wait to hear some more new music just from the, under the Tremonti solo record brand.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about the album so far?
We're very, very proud of it. We filmed 3 videos for it already.
Okay.
And I think they all turned out. I've never been good at videos. The videos, I always hate them all, but I like these 3. All 3 of them, I think, turned out great. The director JT did a wonderful job, and it's I got to sit on this thing until January. We recorded it. We'll have listening. We've mastered the record now for I think 2 months. So by the time it comes out, it'll be an old record to me. But very happy with it. Everybody's heard it so far. Sings its praises. So we hope the fan base feels the same way. But
absolutely. So you've got these 3 videos sitting waiting to go. Of course. So has this album got a name?
Yes, it's called. I think it's getting announced August 6th.
August 6th. Okay.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to say yet, but August 6th, the big announcement comes out with the name.
August 6th is the time to keep an eye on the social media, and you should drop some clues every now and then, over the course of it. Again, with your poker face, you could tell us a name, right. And it could be completely something else,
That's right.
For sure. Now. You got Mr. Friedman out there, part of the Creed lineup again. Of course, he's been doing some great work with you with Tremonti. Is he going to be coming over in January as well as part of the band?
Absolutely, yeah. Eric's on tour with us now with Creed, and he's obviously in the Tremonti band as well. So yeah,
who else is part of the new Tremonti lineup?
Well, Ryan Bennett and Tanner Keegan. Yeah, fantastic. So same lineup as we had on Marching in Time.
Perfect. And the guys playing on the record as well, or are you doing most of the stuff on there?
Well, E-Rock played bass on the record because Tanner was touring around the country at the time. But Ryan played drums, E-Rock played guitar, played rhythm guitar and with me, and I sang and played lead guitar.
Awesome. Now, I've asked you a few times about this as well, but this fantastic PRS that you've got that nobody can get a version of. Everyone wants one. They can't get a version of the Stella guitar, of course.
Yes.
And I understand that it's a tricky one for Paul to commit to because, he needs to get any CNC machines and what have you. But with the Creed machine rolling, that's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
I'll ask again. I mean, with that, these things would just fly out the door. Any chance that we could maybe see a limited run of these down the line?
I would love to. I've gone to dinner with Paul a few times, and he's pretty adamant about not putting it out. For a handful of reasons. The one obvious reason is they'd have to have a whole corner of the factory built just for those CNC machines for the guitar. But there's other reasons as well, and he's just I'm just happy that he made them for me, and I love them. Some of my favorite guitars in the world.
Absolutely. And what about amps on the tour just now currently? I take it the MT100 is just sitting there at the back rocking things, yeah?
Oh yeah, the MT100 sounded great. I'm using a Mastermind foot controller that I think is called Mastermind GL, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of the brain of the rigs because I have I'm using the MT100 in with the Synergy amps. I don't know if you heard of those yet.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so Synergy makes some great module like preamp modules that you can use. And I'm right now when I go to clean on the MT100, I'm partnering that with the Fender Twin. It's called the TDLX, which sounds like it's a Tweed Deluxe, but I think it's more of a Twin that it's modeled after. So the combination of the MT100 clean with that just sounds just amazing. And then when I go to the overdrive channel on my MT100, I partner that with the Morgan module for the Synergy for an overdriven kind of half clean, half dirty tone. And then for the big dirty tone, I go to my red channel and the MT100 and I partner that with the SLO modules for the Synergy. So together, I'm a big believer in having two amps, cover that, they're gonna do different things. So there's gonna be a bigger frequency range that they hit when you have two different amps doing the same thing. But it just becomes kind of. It took us about 2 days to dial it in because we had a lot of phasing issues and a lot of little things to work out. But that Mastermind ground controller kind of keeps it all going.
Absolutely, and different venues. You're playing on cruise ships now. I mean, it's a whole different animal, isn't it? You're taking these things, and of course, you guys haven't switched over to digital. You still like to keep everything analog, so it's just that little bit more challenging. But it's obviously sounding incredible now. Because we can't talk any more on the solo record, which I'd love to, and I can't wait to get to hear it. I'm going to ask a few more Creed ones while I get the opportunity to do it. So again, let's just go back. like 25 years. At this sort of point, 25 years ago, the album's ready. It's ready to drop. Hire's the first single coming out. What's the feeling of the band at that point? I mean, you're going to be dropping this record that's going to go top 10 in the US. The album's going to go on to sell 11 million and just in the US alone. Could you have predicted any of that?
No, we throughout our early careers with Creed, we were always told that we were going to be either one-hit wonders or have one-hit record, and everybody's always telling us that it was impossible to do the things that we were going to do. And so we were always I know I was always fighting for survival and always just worried that one day I would not be able to write songs for profession anymore, and always scared the hell out of me. So when we came out with the second record, when that first song came out, when Higher came out, and the response to it was huge, that made me feel, a little more secure in our career. It did very well. And like I said, people were saying, yeah, that will be your sophomore slump, the second record, and it came out and did way better than the first record.
Oh yeah.
In this business, people are, the more success sometimes you have, the more you have people trying to, say it's not going to continue. So we had to fight to stay alive back then.
Yeah, no, for sure. And of course, as you're saying there, the more success you get, sometimes there can be problems with that too, because the days before social media, it was still ways to, attack people that you feel, or they're getting too ahead of themselves, or they've got too big, or what have you. Was there having such a massive record that everybody bought, and the tracks are playing on the radio so often, was it a challenge mentally sometimes when as many people that loved you guys, there just seemed to be just as many that were being negative about your music? Yeah,
it's I just came to realize that if you want to have that level of success, you're going to have to take the good with the bad, and you see it. You see it time and time again. I mean, I think the most obvious thing now is you see, not that we were ever as big, but Taylor Swift gets on TV and everybody wants us to, poke jabs, and she's selling out stadiums at the same time. Anybody who's in the spotlight like that and has that level of success is going to have the detractors, people that are going to go out there and try to sling arrows. It's just part of the game. But would you rather have a big successful career, or would you rather to have a mediocre career where everybody says how great you are? I've gotten to kind of see both sides of the fence. When we started Alter Bridge over there, we got a lot of praise with Alter Bridge, critically, and then
sure,
it just wasn't the same amount of record sales and all that thing going on. So I've kind of gotten to see what it feels to be on both sides of that fence, and they both have their perks, they both have their faults.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's you've hit the lottery multiple times. I mean, it must be interesting when you go to different countries what you're more known for, And do you find that now that all these years later, that when you're in the UK, there is more of a demand for Alter Bridge, and then in the US it's vice versa? Or is that just, me being in London, I wouldn't be able to tell, but how is it from your perspective?
Yeah, no, I think Alter Bridge is definitely the bigger band over in the UK for sure. But in this day and age of social media and just the internet in general, I think people from around the world are very aware of all the bands. So it's we've had tons of people. Anytime we put a post out for Creed, we have got tons of people in Europe asking for Creed to go over there. But we have no idea how the turnouts would be because we haven't toured there in an incredibly long time. So we don't know if we would play Wembley or if we would play tiny little club. Who knows?
Well, I think it's definitely going to be the bigger venue, that's for sure. Just touching on Alter Bridge a little bit, you're saying there, trying to factor everything in. You're a very, very busy man. Are we going to see some more Alter Bridge new music in the next year, potentially?
The plan is to go in the studio or do writing sessions in March. So we're going to be busy all next year writing and recording Alter Bridge so we can try to stay as close to the 3-year cycle as we've always been on.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely look out for that. And then just touching again on Creed a little bit, over the years, all these recording sessions that you guys have done, and I know you put out just about everything that you've done, but are there some stuff that, some bits that, are some great tracks that just weren't fully realised that we could potentially get to hear in the future, or things that just were on the cutting room floor that you feel that fans would really appreciate hearing from Creed?
Yeah, I had a whole record on my that I had recorded of demos that we were doing for Creed before we parted ways in 2012. But going back and listening to that, I'm like, some of them are keepers, but I think we could, if we started over and just dove in again, we could do better. So it's good stuff, but it's, like I said, I think we're all new and improved musicians. And now that we're doing this tour, you see how crowds react to certain things with this band. And one big thing I think that worked for Creed were dynamics. There's a lot of, like I said, a lot of clean guitars, a lot of, that dynamic between the clean guitar and the big punchy rhythm stuff. And, now that we're doing this tour, we're kind of tapped back into the mentality of the band. It'll be easier to dive back in.
Absolutely. And, I won't ask you if there is going to be new Creed music because I'm going to live in hope that there is. But what I want to know is, would you like there to be new Creed music?
Yeah, I love writing music, and I love doing it in many different ways. I think I love challenging ourselves. I love to be challenged, and writing for all these different acts, when you get into it, you're like, how am I going to differentiate this from my other projects? How are we going to make this its own thing and not sound like this other band with just a different vocalist on it, and that. So it would need to be
a fresh look. It would need to be a fresh look on the band. Do you think?
I think putting a fresh look, but also realizing what people loved about the band, and trying to keep that intact and not get too progressive in any way with Creed. I think we keep that to Alter Bridge and Tremonti, and we keep Creed a little more the way it was back in the day. The big melodies, the big I don't know, just the just the stuff that worked back in the day. And I think on the Full Circle record, I think we got somewhat a little more I don't know. I think we strayed a little bit from our original sound with that album. So I think it'd be good to try to get back to that original sound a little more.
Absolutely. Look, Mark, it's always an absolute pleasure, in particular pleasure to chat so much Creed stuff. I do hope that one day we do get to hear you guys playing over here in the UK. And again, with that poker face, I don't know. You could be lined up to headline Download, all I know. But either way, I'll definitely catch you when you're here with the solo record. Enjoy tonight's show. I know you're just about to get on stage, and I'll see you when you get back in the UK.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you, man. See you, man.